Okay, so The Future Makers is a documentary which went to air on Discovery Channel at the end of last year. The film itself had been in the making for quite some time, and for some people they're like, oh, that took a while, finally you've done it, and now it's out there. But originally it did start as a much bigger idea in some ways. It started off with the idea of having a series that looked at some of the models for what if we could have the kind of future that we would like to have, which is clean, green, and very positive. You know, who are some of the people around the world who could possibly take us there in some shape or form? And the idea was to look at a range of areas, from energy to industry and manufacturing, you know, agriculture, housing, things like ecosystem services, how nature provides so much for us, but we don't necessarily value it sufficiently. So looking at economic models and looking at redesigning our whole economic, you know, way we do things, all of our structures, etc. So my attitude was that, look, these are complex issues, but one way to do it is to point to role models or case studies or examples of people who are actually doing these things already, so that people go, oh, okay, I see how that's done. And the other thing as well was that I kept feeling like there was a lot of misinformation floating around, a lot of negativity floating around, especially around the issue of climate change. A lot of objections to certain technologies or green pathways, and I thought, no, this is just not okay. I mean, there's a whole lot of blocks that are being placed in the way, and so let's try and find some really good examples where people can see them working in action, and a lot of those objections hopefully kind of dissolve away the more you sort of understand how it works. Anyway, what ended up happening is the Discovery Channel wanted us to make the show, but not quite the way we wanted to do it. The thing was to bring the focus back to just Australia, and so the idea was to look at renewable energy solutions and some of the leaders in Australia around renewable energy. So in a way we've kind of picked some of the cream of the crop in Australia of people who have been working around renewable energy solutions. And I think a lot of these people are really quite incredible. They're heroes who have actually been working in the field for many, many years. Some of you may have heard of them or know them. Actually, I'm not going to show the whole film, but it looks at a range of technologies, from solar photovoltaics, some of the originators of that at University of New South Wales. We look at solar thermal, so we look at David Mills's technology, the large-scale solar thermal power station, utility-scale solar technology, Keith Lovegrove at ANU. And we also look at the geothermal to a degree. And we also look at ocean power and wave power. Now, and the idea of the energy ecosystem, the idea of looking at nature as a model and saying we can learn from an ecosystem how you have many different forms working together in the same way that an ecosystem works, you know, the small through the medium to the large, and things working organically, then that's not a bad model to use. So biomimicry became an important idea that we wanted to explore through the film as well. And so the idea of choosing some technologies that explore the idea of biomimicry, looking at nature as a model for how to get back into balance the human world and the natural world, to try and find that point of equilibrium. Okay, so that's to intro it. I'll show you this little section from the film which covers some of that, but just to keep in mind that this is only just a tiny taste of it. There are a lot more than just this, but this is, again, is a nice example of biomimicry and some of the changes in design thinking that will be needed if we are going to step into this new, clean, green future, hopefully.
Of black coal, and coal is responsible for 40% of Australia's greenhouse gas emissions. Emissions from the way energy is used is causing problems, ranging from urban pollution to disturbance of larger atmospheric systems, resulting in extreme weather patterns.
The world that we've come from is a world that has used resources essentially without thinking. And I call that world the age of progress. And the environmental systems we know will not support the use of resources like that. What we now need to do is create a world of sustainable design, a world that uses resources not just carefully, but a much, much smarter way than we have up until now. And we will need to design that very, very well, and we'll need to use every technology. And that's the world of sustainable design.
But also you see the response there. That's That's not hard enough.
All around Australia, the race is on to design and build high-tech alternatives to fossil fuels. Scientists are looking to harvest renewable energy from Australia's unique natural resources, from her endless miles of coastlines, waves and oceans, from ancient geological formations and hot rock deposits deep below the Earth. From the abundant sun shining on her deserts and vast interior landscapes. And they are discovering that Mother Nature could provide more than just a range of energy sources.
Up until now, we have used energies, particularly, I think, in very mechanical ways. What I'm talking about, in fact, is saying that ecological models, or the way that living systems work, are much more appropriate for this. So there is a design revolution that will occur whether we like it or not.
In the search for ecological approaches, the make or break point for these technologies is good design. But what if the solution was staring us in the face? What if nature itself held the answers? Biomimicry is the new buzzword for an ancient principle: nature-inspired design.
Biomimicry at heart is innovation inspired by nature. It's a process of learning from and then emulating life's blueprints, recipes, and relationship strategies. You can mimic form, which is the mimicry literally of a shape. So you might want to mimic the beak of a kingfisher, like they did in Japan. The bullet train used to be a bullet, and now it's a kingfisher beak shape because that's a very good shape for cutting through air and for going into a tunnel and out of a tunnel without any sort of a sonic boom.
One example of mimicking form is Dr. Tim Finnegan's ocean power systems.
That's new to me, isn't it?
He's in the Ship Hydrodynamics Centre at the Australian Maritime College, using their wave tank to test prototypes of his tidal and wave power technologies.
The tuning seems to be okay, but you'll need to find a way to quickly measure the frequency. This is the BioStream tidal current power conversion system, and it's a biomimetic device that extracts power from a moving flow, such as a tidal current. It moves in an oscillating manner, much like a fish swims, but it takes power from the flow and generates electricity. We looked at the ocean and the environment and we really thought from the very basic level, what can we deploy there that's going to work and it's going to stay out there for years and function reliably. A shark has evolved over billions of years to be very efficient at cruising and using the tail beat period to produce forward thrust. The lift produced causes this tail to shift back and forth against the load imposed by an electric generator, and that process generates power.
When we're setting up the BioStream, again hooking up the machine so that we can do our first test run.
The full-size prototypes they are about to test in the ocean will be 20 meters high.
Yes, beautiful. Well, we put the model in and it's working, so you see it swims like a nice little fish. And that's really good, that's exciting.
We really were seeing more and more interest, more and more demand for large-scale installation. But eventually, you will see a large wave of tidal farms. It's gone past the point of being sort of speculative and kind of an emerging technology, and I firmly believe it's on the verge of widespread acceptance.
With Australia's access to large coastal areas, inventions like the BioStream are no longer the realm of science fiction. Cutting-edge innovation inspired by centuries of evolution could finally be part of our future.